Well, Ronen Bergman is the Israeli intelligence and national security analyst for Israel's largest daily newspaper, Yediot Aharonot. He's also the author of The Secret War with Iran and a recent article for the New York Times magazine titled Will Israel Attack Iran? He joined me just a short time ago from Berlin. Ronen Bergman, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor.
First of all, what did you make of the state television performance last night of President Ahmadinejad, who produced evidence that Iran has moved quicker than the world expected in its nuclear project?
Well, I think that the intelligence services in the West dealing with the factual basis of how advanced is the Iranian nuclear project, we're not surprised. They know that Iran so far was able to produce something between 80 to 100 kilos of medium enriched uranium to the point of 19.7%, and the so-called show-off by Ahmadinejad in having such a capability is not entirely a surprise. I think that more importance is attributed to the existence of the press conference and the things that Ahmadinejad said. And I think this is an ample proof that, at least so far, and in spite of the strong sanctions that were imposed against the Iranian Central Bank, shutting down the SWIFT money computer system by the United States vis-a-vis Iran, all the steps had so far did not change the basic stand of the Iranian leadership, and on the contrary, they are becoming more rigid, they are becoming more, I would say, fierce and defiance in their consistent persistency in order to declaring that they are going to continue with the nuclear project no matter what.
Now, in your long article, Will Israel Attack Iran?, you actually quote Israel's Defense Minister Ehud Barak as saying that Iran is now close to entering what he calls its immunity zone. What is the immunity zone?
The zone of immunity was coined by Defense Minister Barak, who basically is writing and dictating the Israeli doctrine vis-a-vis Iran, and it refers to that specific point on the timeline after which an Israeli or American aerial strike over the Iranian nuclear site would be possible but ineffective, because the Iranians are dying. Iranians fearing from such a strike are doing whatever they can to spread the sites in many installations as possible, put them underground, fortify them, defend them with missile batteries, anti-aircraft batteries, and hide the fissile material that they have already produced. And therefore, from the point of view of Israel, it is less important how long will it take Iran to reach a production of first nuclear bomb. It is far more important how long will it take Iran to enter this zone of immunity, because after which the issue of the Iranian nuclear threat would be, I'm quoting Minister Barak, would be important, but it would be shift from the decision makers to us, journalists and historians.
Yeah, so that seems to be, sorry if I can interrupt you there, that seems to be driving
Sure.
a kind of fast-paced timetable. And indeed, last week the reports the US Defense Secretary Leon Panetta believes there's a strong likelihood Israel will launch an attack on Iran's nuclear facilities between April and June this year. What do you say to that assessment?
Secretary of Defense Panetta assessment comes exactly from the figures that were presented to him in the secret talk with Israel by Israeli intelligence of how long will it take Iran to enter the zone of immunity. And according to this assessment, it will take Iran something like 9 months vis-a-vis the Israeli firepower capability to enter the zone of immunity. Of course, it will take Iran more to enter the zone of immunity if it were the Americans to attack. But the American representative, President Obama, Secretary of Defense Panetta, and others do not comply themselves to such a strike. Therefore, Israel, or some Israeli leaders, believe that Israel should strike Iran before it enters the zone of immunity, meaning in the coming 9 months.
So the big question is, will the United States give Israel a green light to do that? And I note in your piece you talk about, in the past, a history of the US giving Israel a flickering green light?
Yeah, the issue of the color of that light from the United States has been in the center of the complex and also very intimate and deep relations between the countries. There are two previous instances. Israel struck the Iraqi Tammuz Osirak reactor by Baghdad in 1981 in spite of their very strong objection from the United States. Israel sent its bombers to destroy the Syrian reactor in September 2007 with the tacit consent of the United States. Now, what sort of lesson can Israel draw from these two instances? What sort of lesson can Israel take or assess by the latest comments from the United States? This is under severe debate in Israel. Is the United States giving Israel a flickering, blinking green light? Is it a red light? And if it's a red light, what the United States would do if Israel strike?
One critical question that senior Israeli military and political leaders are agonizing over right now, and you talk about this as well, is whether they actually have the capacity to stop Iran's nuclear facilities or to destroy Iran's nuclear facilities. We know that some of them, for example, are buried more than 220 feet in bunkers. You mentioned the bunkers before. Is there the capacity, do you believe, for the Israeli Air Force to actually destroy these facilities?
Nobody is thinking or dreaming about destroying the site, but to inflict significant damage to the Iranian nuclear project. According to latest assessment by the Air Force and the Atomic Energy Committee, the Israeli Atomic Energy Committee, a successful strike would yield in a delay of 3 to 5 years in the Iranian nuclear project. Not a total destruction, not a total stop, but a delay. And of course, there comes the important question. Does it worth it? Is it worth the delay, the inevitable day after effect, the rain of missiles and rockets that is going to hit Israeli cities? There are those who believe that, yes, in order to prevent Iran from becoming a nuclear military state, something that is perceived in Israel as an existential threat, as a threat of another Holocaust, of annihilation of Israel. But there are those who also believe that Israel cannot sustain this rain of missiles and therefore should at least for now, maintain quiet and not send the bombers.
Yes, I mean, one of those, in fact, you describe a very interesting sort of cloak and dagger meeting with the retiring director of Mossad, Meir Dagan. Now, can you explain what he told you? Because he's very sceptical about Israel's capacity to do much damage and also about what would happen after an Israeli raid.
On his last day in office, the legendary, controversial, efficient, and people say cruel chief of Israeli Mossad, Meir Dagan, called me in and some other journalists, and basically said that the careless Prime Minister and Minister of Defense, Benjamin Netanyahu, and Minister of Defense Ehud Barak, are driving Israel to strike Iran. And he said this strike should not happen. He said it's a stupid idea, because the timeline of the Iranian nuclear project was delayed over and over again by the covert operations. He was hinting about his own organization, by sanctions, etc. He said the sword is not yet on our neck. And on the contrary, he said, if Israel strike, Israel doesn't have the capability to cause enough damage. And the day after, the missiles are going to cause enormous harm and damage to Israel's cities, and moreover, it will unite, he claims, the Iranian people behind the regime and would result in exactly the opposite of what the world is looking for, and this is the Arab Spring coming to Iran. Therefore, there is a strong rift inside Israeli leadership whether to strike or not, but in time being, the Prime Minister and the Minister of Defense both are strong supporters of such a strike.
Yes, you concluded, after speaking to some of these most senior people in the Israeli military, intelligence and political scene that there will be a strike. That's your conclusion this year.
Yes. I must add to that both the Prime Minister and Minister of Defense Barak, they both say that the decision has not yet been made, and even a time to reach such a decision has not yet been set. However, after speaking with most of the relevant individuals in Israel and in the United States, I would think that there is a strong likelihood that Israel will strike in 2012 because all other scenarios are of very low probability. Other scenarios include, for example, an American strike or Israeli-American joint effort, joint military operation. Another scenarios could be a regime change in Iran or an Iranian decision to give up, open all their sites to the UN IAEA inspection and disassemble their nuclear project to the satisfaction of Israel and the United States. Because many people, including me, believe that all other scenarios are of a very low probability. It leaves only one, and this is an Israeli strike of high one, because of high probability, because, and I'm quoting Minister of Defense Barak, when he says all options are on the table except for one option, and this is the C option, containment.
Finally, if you're right, and certainly your analysis seems sound, should we be preparing ourselves for a new war in the Middle East? Because it's inevitable, isn't it, that Syria will get dragged into this, the Hezbollah, Hamas in Gaza, perhaps other countries in the Middle East may get involved. Certainly other countries in the Middle East may seek nuclear weapons if Iran does. I mean, the consequences of all of this are really so awful that it's hard to imagine.
There's a biblical say that the prophecy was given to fools. So I'm not going to give any sort of prophecy, just maybe my assessment. I think that the likelihood of Syria having all these internal problems, being involved or taking part in a war against Israel are not very high. I do believe that Hezbollah and in the north of Israel and Hamas in the Gaza Strip in the south of Israel, both Islamic jihadist movements that are being supported by Iran, are going to take part, are going to bomb Israeli cities with missiles. I'm not sure that they would like to go into an all-out war with Israel rather than sort of demonstrate their symbolic support to Iran. Indeed, the day after effect can be horrific, can be extremely problematic for the region. But, and I'm not saying it's my position, I'm just trying to portray the mindset inside Israeli leadership. They say that with all due respect, and they take it very seriously, what can happen the day after, the possibility of Iran holding nuclear weapon is a much bigger risk for all sorts of reasons, and therefore other possibilities or other consequences are minor in order to prevent the risk of a nuclear Iran.
Ronen Bergman, we thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us. We'll obviously be following this very closely. We thank you for being there tonight.
Thank you very much for inviting me.